Hello and a warm welcome back to the garden. In this video I'm going to show you what you can do with your spring flowering tubs and containers that are now looking a little bit like this. And I'm also going to show you what I'm going to plant in this beautiful container to replace this old display. So a lot of you will be familiar with the site of this container. We've enjoyed so many beautiful flowers, from the crocus first, then the hyacinths, and then a little bit later we had the daffodils. And now we've just got the last remaining flowers of the forget-me-nots. And whilst it's looking very dishevelled, the forget-me-nots are trying to lift it up a little bit. But unfortunately it's past its best. It's no longer a tub that I can honestly say that we want to showcase anymore. So what I'm going to be doing is, because it's such a lovely container, I'm not going to let this die back in this container. What I'm going to do is going to lift the bulbs out of this, separate them out and replant them just into some plastic containers, and that way it means I can utilise the bulbs for planting again next autumn, but also I can utilise this beautiful pot with something which is much more current and will look a lot more attractive than this, which is well past its best. So I'm going to don some gloves, because this might be a little bit of a messy job, and I'm hoping it's just going to come straight out quite easily once I tip it on its side. Let's have a look. So if I kind of grab it all together a bit like that and then just pull, it should all just come out. Definitely want to utilise this lovely container, so put that to one side, and then let's have a look at what we've got. So around the edges we have all the daffodil bulbs, so I'm just going to try and gently just pull these a little bit just to get them separated. And you can see we did go to a lot of great lengths to make sure that these weren't overwatered and over waterlogged. We do have a lot of gritty compost in there. So I'm just literally feeling my way around and just trying to get the bulbs separated as best I can. And this just allows us to put these somewhere else where they can die back down naturally, while we can be utilising that lovely container for something else. There's all kinds of things in here. So we have some crocus here, so they can be planted in a different pot. We have more crocus there. Around the edges we've got all these lovely narcissus. It doesn't feel like 5 minutes ago since this was in full bloom, and already we're having to dismantle it. Crocus there. And if you just go at it like this, so that you're just separating out the ones that you've got into the different flowers that you have. Now obviously if you're growing all the same variety in one container, and you do have containers large enough, plastic ones, you can just literally pop them out of the posh terracotta ones or whatever you're using and just place them into something like these ones, these bog standard plastic pots. But because there's a lot of different bulbs in here, it was a bulb lasagna, it does mean that I do need to take some care just to separate them out. So when it comes to replanting them, I know exactly what I'm doing. So these are the hyacinths. To have a hyacinth bulbs there. That's another one, I think. And that's another narcissus there. And then these forget-me-nots that are still flowering, I'm actually going to just replant them in the border because they are still going, and it would be a shame to waste them really at this point. So another hyacinth, another narcissus, forget-me-nots, that's another hyacinth, and then these are the forget-me-nots. And it's a shame really because they are still flowering quite a lot, but in amongst that display they're just not doing what they should be doing, which is all flowering at the same time. So I'm going to plant them somewhere in the borders, so put them to one side. And then with regards to all these, so they're all the hyacinths. Just going to get a pot and just using the same compost, I'm just going to put these just as they are. I'm not trimming these back because remember, all that growth at the top will be feeding the bulb for next year's flowers. There's moss in here and everything. So I'll get a plant label and I'll label these up so I know what's in them, because once all this foliage dies back it will mean that we won't know what's in the container any longer. And I'll also say that we'll also be making sure this is fed again, so we'll use some high potassium fertiliser, so our comfrey feed or tomato feed, and we'll just keep feeding this until we start to see these leaves turning yellow. Feed it maybe once a fortnight, and that will just help to get that bulb ready for flowering next year. So I'll put that to one side. Now for these other ones I may need more than one container. Let's just see what happens. I'm just going to put everything in there. Moss can go in there with it, I don't really mind. And then in these pop. And I'm just going to place, if I can, all of these in this pot. Just about have the space to pop them all in. There we go. And if I just try and separate some of these crocus bulbs, I can get to this compost. Make sure you put all this compost back around the bulbs, and then give it a wiggle, make sure it goes around all the bulbs themselves. And again, I make sure that these are well fed with some high potassium feed to make sure that all that energy can be stored in the bulbs for flowering next spring. Put that to one side. Then I'm just going to clean this tray, so movie magic please. So here we are again now with a nice clean tray and an empty container. So it's not going to stay empty for very long because I do have some more plants to put in this. So I'm going to put some of this multi-purpose compost down in this container to begin with. And I've chosen two plants that are quite similar in their preferred habitats. So the first one is a beautiful Geum. Now you'll know Geums because we do grow some nice Geums here. We have Totally Tangerine. Now this is an unlabelled one. We got this from one of the supermarkets and this was only £6. So that's the label there. And it starts out this lovely red with yellow and then ends up being much more red once it develops. Now there are a few pieces that just need cutting back. So what we'll do is I'll just get these chopped off first of all. So the thing with Geums is once the whole stem has finished flowering, take it right back down to where it meets the ground. And just take the whole stem off. There's another one there, so let's get that one off as well. Now when I bought this, not only was it a bargain, but I did also look and realised there's actually 3 plants in here, 3 separate individual plants. So I work out that it's £2 per plant, and that is an absolute bargain. So let's first of all remove it from its container, take these roots out. There we go. And I'm just going to see if I can just divide this into its 3 plants. Because these are 3 distinct, different separate plants. And whilst I could just plant it as a clump, I don't really want to do that. I want to give them a good space in between each other. So here we go. That's the one. And then that's the other 2. So I'm going to plant these in a little triangle. Let's get a bit more compost. Just so we can get them anchored in. It just needs to be a little bit more higher in the container. So that's the 3 Geums that I want to place in the container. And what I thought I'd also do is match it with a similar kind of plant which likes a similar kind of condition to what the Geum likes. So Geums like to be in free draining but moist soil, and that's quite a difficult thing to achieve, but if these are let to dry out they will show you and droop. You'll see all these flowers drooping over when they're too dry. They should be hopefully fine in this container. And then I'm going to bring back this lovely evergreen, and this is a perennial grass, evergreen like I've just said, and it's Acorus Ogon, and this can tolerate quite dampish soils as well. So there's one plant here, and what I'm going to also do is show you how we can divide it. It reminds me very much of an iris because you can see these almost like rhizomes that are protruding. Now each one of them, if I can cut them off with a bit of root, will be a new plant. So what I'm going to do with that is, I only really want 3 parts, so I can put one in each of the opposite ends of the pot. So I'm just going to see if I can just do a bit of a division. And it's a bit of a trial and error really, but there should be enough to chop away. There we go. So that's a nice sized plant, and if you can see what I'm hoping to achieve is that lovely evergreen foliage with picking up that lovely yellow that's coming out in the flowers to begin with. So that's the plan. I'm just going to slice this right down the middle, just like that. I could get lots and lots of plants out of this, but I'm quite content with 3. As you can see, what I was saying about it being a bit like a bearded iris, it's like a bit of a rhizome there, then you have all these roots coming out from it. So a lot of these could be, you know, separated into many plants. But because I want the impact with this container, I want to put 3 big kind of clumps in it. So hopefully now you can get to see the kind of effect I'm looking to get. And then just using some more of this compost. I'm just going to backfill. Going all the way around the container, making sure that compost is nice and pushed around all these roots. Now this grass, this evergreen grass, has been waiting for the perfect place to be planted. Because if you can remember back to one of our earlier videos, we did do a winter pot, and we made it in the autumn, and we put bulbs in it and we left it by the front door, and this was one of the plants we used. It had this in it, it had some yellow pansies, tulips, and it's been waiting for probably over, getting on for, this would be probably its 2nd year now, to have its pride of place. Both these plants like a sunny position, so it's all about placing plants together that do like a similar environment. Because if you plant plants that are quite opposite to each other in a container, you can't really distinguish between something that likes a dry soil compared to something that likes a wet soil. The fact is, if it's in the container with both plants planted in the same place, you're only going to have the one environment, and it's only ever going to perhaps suit one of the plants that you're planting. So I'm just making sure these are nice and firmly in. So I think that looks fantastic. We've got lots and lots more flowers to appreciate on this geum, and when they do finish flowering, like I said, when the whole stem finishes, chop them right back down to where they're growing from, so the base, and then feed them with some high potassium fertiliser, some feed, and that will then encourage another flush of flowers later on. So I'm very happy with that. All that's left to do now is give it a really good water, and I think I'll do that once I've placed it in its final place. There we go. Giving it a really good water, because remember I have disturbed the roots quite a bit. I need to make sure they're not going to go into too much shock. That is just perfect. So these nodding flowers will be perfect for the buzzing bees that are coming around the garden now. Now I do think that was a better use of this beautiful container than just having all those decaying bulbs left in them. So if you have containers like this with your prize bulbs in them, pop them out into normal plastic ones, tuck them away somewhere, keep them out of view. The worst thing to do is to chop the foliage back, because that foliage is still photosynthesizing, it's still creating energy to prepare the bulb for flowering next year. So I'm very happy with this new look. It's got a combination of some lovely evergreen grasses, and also this foliage from the geum is usually quite evergreen. and they do look quite nice with a bit of a frosting on as well. I do hope you've enjoyed watching this video and you've gained some inspiration for using your pots that you had spring bulbs in. Please give me a like. Please also subscribe if you've not already done so. If you have subscribed, can I just say thank you very much. We have just recently passed the 3,000 mark and we are really, really happy. When we first started doing this channel, perhaps I think it might have been 2 years ago, we didn't expect it to be as good as what it is and to have as many followers as what we do have, and that is all down to you. You keep following us, you keep giving us the inspiration to keep going with the videos and keep giving you content that you're going to enjoy watching. So hopefully we will keep doing that for you and you can keep watching and enjoying the videos that we create. So thanks from me and thanks from Andrew too. If you do have any comments, drop them in the comments box below the video. We'll see you very soon on the next one. In the meantime, please do take care.